Hello and welcome to the Three Will Podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan. I have Tommy Ryan here with me. How you doing, Tommy?
I'm doing well. Good morning, Danny.
Good morning. We've got a couple of topics today that we'll cover, and we'll break it out into two podcasts. The first one, I just wanted to try this out since I'm just starting to read a couple of books and just wanted to sort of take the takeaways that I get from the books and talk it through with you. And
Okay.
it's like giving you the cliff notes to the book. You don't even have to read the book, Tom.
Awesome.
This is good stuff,
that's
isn't
the
it?
way I rolled in college. So.
Yeah, we'll just leave that one alone. Recently I went on a retreat with Amy, with my wife, at the WindShape Retreat Center. This is at Berry College, and this was something that the WindShape Foundation, which was started by Chick-fil-a, and they ended up converting this dairy into this beautiful retreat facility, and we had just a great time there. And they had a little a statue of, I guess you still call it a statue if it's someone sitting on a bench, of Truett Cathy there. And it just got me into, and they had a couple books in the room, and it just got me intrigued about reading more about the organization. And then tomorrow we're going to the Innovation Center and visiting there. So I just wanted to do a little bit of homework.
Yeah, great.
For reading up more on the culture, because that's part of my role, is making sure that we work with the right organizations. I think there's no doubt in our mind that Chick-fil-A is a great organization, but I just wanted to do a little bit of research for it. And so I read a book called It's My Pleasure, and it's by Deanne Turner. And the subtitle is The Impact of Extraordinary Talent in a Compelling Culture. And definitely
like
reading through this, talking about culture. I'm just going to wind you up and you're going to take off. Are you ready for this, Tommy?
Are you ready?
I don't know. So I have 10 takeaways from this book. And the first is I just wanted to start with It's My Pleasure. You know, whenever I find it, when you're at a Chick-fil-A and, you say thank you and you automatically get that response from them. One of the things I really like about it is that it sort of shows a very appreciative, a very thankful, a very grateful comment when you hear that back. And I think like when you're at other places and you tell someone thank you and there's no response back, it just seems weird now. It seems unusual to not get any response back of, I'm a customer, and just even acknowledging that. But I thought that's sort of what drew me to this book, which was It's My Pleasure. And I think just hearing that from people and being a part of a culture that's appreciative.
Nice.
I'm going to get you warmed up here. I'm warming you up here. The second one is about culture, and I mentioned Truett Cathy earlier, and his was one of the things he said was, we're not in the chicken business, we're in the people business.
Right, I've heard of that.
And
before.
sort of taking it that some people would look at it, you're putting together breakfast and lunch for people, and you're processing chicken and all this stuff, and really he saw this whole thing about being in the people business, and about and what I find very interesting with him is the whole franchise model, the operator model that they have, where he's actually giving people the opportunity to start their own business, which I thought that was probably very fulfilling for him to be able to do this. But very much the book started off with focusing in on the culture of the business and focusing in on the people aspect of the business. The third one was...
you mind if I interject there?
Please.
Can't let you go too long.
Yeah, I know.
I'll
talk to you guys. I'll talk to you guys in 10 minutes here.
I really like the people aspect. I think that's something that when we look at Three Will, our initial logo was a Venn diagram, and it was people, process, technology, and that we focus on the intersection of those three. And I think the reason we did that is we feel that we're passionate about technology, but we know the people aspect of it is the most important part of it. I think as we've matured over the years, we've learned more and more as it relates to hiring the right people, being successful with our customers, just being successful as a company in general, that people has to come first.
Awesome.
So I like, being in the people business. We're almost in I would say the relationship business. We're trying to help teams work together better. So I think that kind of boils down to when we were talking about last time, as it relates to what we're trying to do is we're trying to create relationships.
So it took me all the way to number 3 to get to the first chapter, which was about creating a compelling culture. And it started off with, you showed that like Simon Sinek video about why.
Yeah.
And starting with why.
Starting with why. Yeah.
And then, really the book starts off with, you have to have a clear purpose for existing. Why do you exist? And basically tell a story about Truett and rallying the troops and saying, this is the reason why they have their business at all, is to glorify God by by being a faithful steward of all that has been entrusted to us, to be a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. I'll stop my phone while you do that.
Okay.
That did it on my computer. Sorry, I didn't have my phone on. It just was my computer.
That's
Go ahead.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that purpose, I think we look at our different practices in our morning brew, and we've talked about the morning brew before. We've used that for, sharing things about Office 365, but we also have used it recently to be able to look at our practices, and we start with why. Why have that practice in the first place? And I think we need to have purpose in what we do. Otherwise, we feel very mechanical. I think you tend to go into a burnout stage if there's no driving purpose that kind of gets you up in the morning to go after what you're doing. I think we have natural talents that lead us into doing the work that we do, but we have to have purpose. We have to have a reason why we do those practices.
So they say that this corporate purpose is carved into a stone pedestal that now sits in front of the door at the corporate headquarters in Atlanta. You have to get a picture of me in front of this thing. How about that?
Yeah.
It serves as a daily reminder to everyone who passes through our doors that what we are in the business to do. And then it gets into core values, which, for us was part of the reason why we're called Three Will is because of free will, which was one of our key corporate values that we started the whole company off with. Let's focus in on what do we value as an organization. The next one is for number 4 is, and this is something I wanted to share with you. They have their operators. They have a leadership model that's called the SERVE model. And the SERVE model, basically it's an acronym, which the S is for see and shape the future. E is for engage and develop others. R is for reinvent continuously. V is for value results and relationships. And E is embody the company values.
Yeah. I could, we could dive into each one of those, but I think that's, one of the things that popped up in my mind as you were reading that is our having sponsors at Three Will. Why do we have sponsors at Three Will? I think one is to serve and enable others and to pass down the values. I mean, we pick people at Three Will to be a sponsor. It's not because of an organizational structure, but it's because they know how to embody the values of Three Will, and we see that they can mentor and help others, learn those values over time.
Number 5 is we like things in threes, so this is a 3C one, which is about hiring. It says to hire for character, for competency, and for chemistry. Mm-hmm. So the first one, and really what they emphasize with characters, you can't change somebody's character and how somebody behaves in little ways.
We've learned that. I mean, that's probably been our biggest problem is, how they say is hire slow, fire fast. And we've learned that if there's not the character and the chemistry is not there, it's just a slow death. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that you try to tease out in the interview process. You're not always successful, but after the first month of working together, usually you know what's there, from a character and from a chemistry with others at the company and with your clients. So I think those are important.
Deanne had this comment that she asked herself this question was, would I want my 3 children to work for this person? Really, with probably a combination of the character and the chemistry is thinking about what type of a person is this, and would I feel comfortable that to have my and that speaks to not only what the actions that you're seeing, just sort of what type of a person is this, and would I want my kids to work with this type of person?
Right, and going back to it's a people business for Chick-fil-A. For us, it's very similar to that too, because we're not just developing things. We have a lot of face time with the customers that we serve. So you want your customer to be comfortable. I think about not my children, but I think about would I feel comfortable with our customers? Would these people have the right chemistry and serve them well? And I think that changes from customer to customer. I think there's different chemistry depending on the type of client. There's some hard charging clients that you have to be able to scrap and be in the battle with them, and then there's some that are more laid back and need some help along the way to figure out what to do next. And sometimes that takes a different type of kind of set of skills, and there's a different chemistry there.
Numero 6, sustainable talent. So in this chapter, she talks about keeping people physically healthy, mentally healthy, and emotionally healthy. I think when you think about some of the folks who we're fortunate in that we've got people who've worked here over 10 years.
Right.
And how do you create an environment where it's a sustainable environment for people to be here long term? She points out, the physically part where they work out on a workout facility on premise and things like that. Where if you're not physically taking care of you, I'm talking to somebody who understands that. You take really good care of yourself, because that's if that's not there, then everything else falls apart.
That's right.
Mentally healthy and emotionally healthy as well.
Yeah, I think it's Stephen Covey with those are very similar concepts in terms of how to sharpen the saw.
Yep.
And those are areas that you continue to have to invest in, and you want to support people in the organization to be able to do those things. And as a company that we look at ourselves as a lifestyle type business, we attract people that want to have that balance in life. And if they're on the road constantly in a big consulting firm, coming to Three-Will, they can still be technically challenged, but they can have the balance of time with family and time for exercise. We're flexible around the work hours here. We're not very particular about you've got to be here by this hour and stay to this hour. It's more about getting the work done and integrating your life with your work in a way that gives you the appropriate balance and the opportunity to take care of yourself. We're not about burning people out. We're in an environment that people can be challenged technically, grow. I think from a career standpoint, have a bigger impact over time. And then at the end of the day, it's your choice to stay that mental and physically healthy. But we give you the opportunity to do that.
Number 7 is steward talent. And for this, I just pulled one of the quotes from the book, which is, "The kindest thing you can do for someone is tell them the truth." And this has to do with giving feedback to someone who's working there.
That's hard. So we had a process for reviews at Three-Will that we would essentially evaluate people's skills and go through a whole bank of skills for people, process, technology, and rate people, and then come up with kind of an action plan of how can we grow that individual. And we've moved that into a much simpler model, which is a retrospective. And retrospectives, for those that don't know what that term is in the sprint world, it's stepping back and saying, what should we continue doing? What should we stop doing? And what should we start doing? And so we ask those 3 questions when a sponsor gets with the sponsee. They reach out to others that interact with them and ask those questions and collect that information. And the hardest, the one that you get the few answers for is that stop and start.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to be, truthful, and sometimes it hurts.
Yeah.
And trying to be, constructive with that. It's easy to say, you're great, you do this great, you do this great.
Here's a pat on the back.
A lot of pats on the back, or get 10 of those, and I might get 1 of those stops or starts. And I really value the people that put time into thinking about that stop or start, because we can all grow. It's just a matter, it's uncomfortable to tell the truth.
And they have to be in a position where, because they could be asked to do the other person could be asked to do their start, stop, continue, and they have to be comfortable to be able to say something that might be uncomfortable to say,
right.
And be in an environment. And we're not using the retrospective to basically decide on compensation or things like. It's supposed to be there just to provide feedback for the person. Is that correct?
It really, yes, it's there to grow the individual. The results of what they do is what's impacting their compensation. So when you look at a feedback review, there is no performance metrics, and for good or for worse.
Yeah.
I think there's some pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
But we've decided, keep it simple and focus on the growth of the individual. The results is what we need to look at. And we're a small enough organization, we can understand people's impact.
Nice. Number 8, saying no. I put a big N and a big O. And again, pulling a quote from that chapter. Integrity suffers and relationships are diminished when we don't do what we say we will do. This is definitely in line of making and keeping commitments. It's definitely in line with our core value of honesty. But when I saw this, I was like, Tommy's going to like this quote.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're constantly in that situation of making and keeping commitments. In the sales cycle, we're talking to people, and this week has been a great week. A lot of requests for estimations.
Ooh, we like that.
And but that can be stressful, and also it can be, you want to please the person. You want to say, I can get it to you tomorrow, and sometimes you have to say, well, we've got to get this. We need some time, and I think people respect that. And so that's not saying no. I think what it's saying no to is, setting unrealistic expectations. You're saying, I'm going to commit to something I can do versus commit to something and not do it and ask for kind of forgiveness for not doing it. We're always going to be in that situation where, we make mistakes, but, saying no to things, that's a challenge. I think when we looked at our practices, that's what I grapple with is, did we say no enough to the things that we need to say no to? Because you're really trying to find enough work to keep everybody engaged, because that's good from a financial standpoint. It's good from a mental standpoint.
Sure
Everybody
is.
here wants to be making an impact. So sitting on the bench is not healthy for a number of reasons. So we have broadened our practices, and that concerns me at times to say, should we say no to some of those? And I always challenge myself mentally to say, should we be saying no? We do say no to a lot of things. There's things that we haven't done in the past, which is, we're not an infrastructure engineering organization. So we don't go and set up networks, and we don't do desktop support. I think that's, easier to say no because we don't have people passionate around that. But I think that's something that I'm trying to learn and grow from is, where to say no, where to delegate, and where to say yes. I think we all have that challenge of, focusing on the right things.
Number 9 is they have this concept at Chick-fil-a of employee value promise. Basically, what's the value to being an employee at Chick-fil-a? And a couple things from that is, the first thing that they note is that they care about you personally. So there's a personal aspect. And I think as a small company, it's sort of like, it's probably the more you grow as a company, it's probably more difficult to make an individual feel cared about personally. And I know we just do a lot of stuff around here to whether it's something that happens to a family member or whatever it is, that people are honestly cared about.
Right. Yeah, we have things like the Associate of the Month that we recognize in our company meeting each month. We have praises that we recognize within that, and we use Yammer to recognize when someone's made a big difference. And so I think we care about that. We need to continue to do that. You can always improve that. I think you have to just keep that awareness that at the end of the day, people need to have recognition. They need to feel like a human being, that they're not just a cog in a wheel, that they actually bring value and they have uniqueness as an individual. And I think we try to pull that out to show what makes different people at ThreeWill unique and valuable.
Another aspect of this employee value promise is they say we serve each other. One of the quotes I like: "If you're not serving chicken, you better be serving someone who is."
And then their chicken is our code. So if you're not serving code, you better be serving someone that's serving code.
That's nice. That would be a good quote to put around here in the office. If you're not serving code. And then along with that, they say serving one another is excellent practice in preparation for serving. And they say guests. For us, it's clients. So serving one another is excellent practice in preparation for serving clients.
Right. And I think we talk about that, and I don't know if we've emphasized that enough lately, but we have, external customers and internal customers, and we really should be serving each other internally with, the same amount of passion and understanding and tolerance as the people that we serve on the outside, because they're both important. I mean, it's kind of that goose and the golden egg. I mean, I think. And another Covey concept is you just don't want to push people for production only and not invest in their production capacity. So I think serving others here at ThreeWill, I think we do a decent job of that. We always need to improve. We always need to find ways to not take advantage of each other. I think that's sort of like a family thing. We all experience that, where we might let our guard down with our family, and we can let our guard down internally at ThreeWill, and we tend to not to do that with clients. But we want to make that relationship healthy, because we're going into battle together. We need to have a strong team, and that comes through respect of each other and support of each other.
Number 10, we hit it. Number 10 is practice servant leadership. And not to make you gush, but you are one of this is you. I mean, this is the way you're used to being as an individual, as a leader within the company. And I'm just going to read to you some of the principles that he has in here. And I couldn't read this chapter and not think of you. So it says, don't expect others to do what you are unwilling to do. Acknowledge that every member of the team is important. If there is a line, be the last one in it. Share opportunities and privileges with those who might otherwise never have the opportunity. And the last one is be inclusive.
I can't agree more. Yeah. I think I want to read this book.
I've got a copy right here that I can let you borrow. Absolutely, you can borrow the book. And then that's 10, but I had to add a number 11 because I'm always about overachieving. That's
kicking it up a notch.
Kicking it up a notch. And of course, the number 11 is nurture abundance mentality. So I'm going to jump over to, for folks who are in the book, it's on page 91 in the hardcover book. And then I just want to read you about abundance mentality. People who have an abundance mentality foster other people's dreams. People who have an abundance mentality have confidence. People who have an abundance mentality coach and mentor others. People who have an abundance mentality are optimistic. People who have an abundance mentality are generous. This is definitely, this is Covey, right?
Oh yeah.
This is great stuff, though. I mean, it's how do you create an environment of scarcity? Is there's not enough, and everybody's, how do you create a true team if you're creating this environment where there's a scarcity involved in that?
Yeah, and I think we try to do a good job at that, and sometimes I get concerned about compensation models that might create a scarcity mentality. But I think from a we've got utilization, and that impacts people's quote bottom lines in a sense. And I think there's the right spirit there. There's enough of the drive to accomplish your goals, but not stepping on each other along the way. I think there's a good team type environment, especially for consulting. I think consulting can lead to a bunch of individuals competing for themselves, and we try to knock down those barriers and do a good job of that. And also externally, I think as an organization, we don't talk a lot about competition. It's easy to start talking about competition, and I think that leads to a scarcity mentality. Of course, we've got to recognize that. We have to be smart about how do we position ourselves to be able to attract the projects that bring out the best in us, and that we have the opportunity to put our best foot forward. Competition is there, but at the end of the day, I think we focus on how can we be better, not we've got to beat this company. It's more of how can we improve as a company.
One last quote, and this is quote from the book, and it says, "For Truett Cathy, selling chicken was a means to impact the world." And I think our video that we created is called Impact. I think that's the part that you and I are really want to focus in on, and the legacy that we want to leave behind is making an impact.
Right. Yeah, I remember our first project together at Extreme Logic was doing yellowtruck.com, renting trucks. I think what the thing about that project that was exciting and made you want to get up each morning to go tackle it was you knew that it changed how people can do things in a way that makes life better. And it's not like a mission trip type make life better, but we'd like to see projects that we do get deployed, have an impact, see a ROI, and there's something that we feel, internally that we're not here just to code, but we're here to make business impacts.
And it's often, along the theme of work together better, we're typically not nowadays working on more internal collaboration sites, and sometimes don't get the feedback from people, like if we've made a workflow better, or if we've done made a provisioning process easier, or whatever we did on that project. We don't we sometimes get feedback from clients about hey, the users are so happy about this, but it's like you come in, you're trying to do your best to make an impact inside of that organization. But sometimes if you don't get the feedback that you've made that impact, it's tough sometimes.
Yeah, it is, and you have to kind of cherish the moments that you get that feedback that you're making an impact. And just yesterday, we're down at Secretary of State and talking to the folks there, and they want us to help govern their environment and help provide some architectural guidance to. They're working with different vendors and internally and trying to do more in SharePoint. And at the end of the day, they said this platform is making a big impact for us. It's getting a lot of momentum.
That's great.
And we've been a key part of that. And they're looking for us to nurture and keep that healthy, that there's high trust that we can lead them down the right path, keep them on the guardrails to be successful. And that's an impact. They feel like it's now mission critical. It is business critical for them that they have SharePoint in their environment, because they have figured out bring that into the DNA of how they get things done.
Awesome. Well, I enjoy doing this with you.
Sure,
Maybe we'll do some of these as I read other books, is just pick 10 things out of them and just talk them through. And for me, it's been interesting now that I've moved up to Cumming and I have my drive. I'm driving down here to Alpharetta and passing by a couple of poultry plants and by the Chick-fil-A's, and I think it's just good to realize, the businesses that are around and, the cultures that are created inside of these businesses, and just get to learn more about them and see how that changes sort of the way that, your business is and the way that, what you're trying to create. So I enjoyed, it was good to read this book, and you definitely can borrow it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't have a Kindle version. I have the, I have the hardback book, because sometimes I like to put, underline things and put creases into things and stuff like that. So, well, thank you for doing this, Tommy.
Sure, Danny.
And look forward to going tomorrow down to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun trip.
It'll be an even more meaningful experience going down there. It'll be fun to check the place out, and it was a great book to read, a great culture, and just glad to have companies like Chick-fil-A here in Georgia. So it's good stuff.
All right.
Thank you so much, Tommy.
All right, see you, Dan.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen. Sorry this was a bit of a long one, but hopefully you got a lot out of it. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to the podcast. Just a quick thing to ask from you. In iTunes, if you could give us a review or a rating, that would be wonderful. 5-star would be great. That would make me very happy. But if you could do that, that just still help us with the promotion of the podcast. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.